Welcome to this week's episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in as little as 15 minutes to build your dream business. And now here's your host, the Visibility Wiz, Cindy J.
Hi, I'm Cindy J, the Visibility Wiz, and welcome to this episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in only 15 minutes. Today, our guest is Shameca Tankerson. She is a master sales strategist, an international best-selling author, an award-winning business strategist who's been featured on ABC, CNN, and CBS, and Forbes. She's the creator of the Authority Selling Method. It's a powerful yet simple system for having conversations and making offers that serve and sell. And she is the go-to woman whenever you want to learn how to sell more, period. She's known for her dynamic take-action style and her priceless straight talk. Shameca empowers clients all over the globe to set fire to their fears, ditch self-doubt, sell more and charge more, and own it with zero apologies. Welcome, Shameca.
Thank you for having me, Cindy. I'm happy to be here. Excited to be here.
Yes, I'm just thrilled that you came, and I've known you for a long time, and I do love your dynamic style because you're just such a get it done type person. And I've learned some more things about you recently too. And one of the things that I know is a lot of listeners, they're struggling with their own challenges out there, wondering if they can ever make it or if they're good enough. And so I always ask our guests to share a personal or business challenge that you had to overcome in order to achieve your level of success.
Yeah, that's a great question, by the way. So I'm thinking of, since I'm a salesperson and sales is something that I teach, I want to share something around sales that I had to shift for myself in order to be able to get to the level of success that I am now. And one of the biggest lessons I learned is to not project my story of where I am financially onto my potential clients, onto my prospects. And the way that this story came about me figuring this out is it was actually pointed out to me by one of my coaches. So I had a coach who hired me actually to do sales calls for him. And one of the things that happened is within the first 30 days or so of me working with him, he started to realize this pattern. And the pattern was this: everyone that was being enrolled in his program of late was on a payment plan. So he calls me up, rings me on the phone, and he's like, "Hey, Shameca, or he emails me. He says, "Hey, can we jump on a call?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure. Let's jump on a call." And so we get on the call and he goes, "Let me ask you a question. If you had to make this investment right now and pay in full, would you be able to do it?" And I'm like, why is he asking me this? And then I thought, no, I would need a payment plan. And then he brought up to me that typically when he was doing his own sales calls, most of the people just gave him the full payment, no problem. And I thought, wow. Okay, it was a point of revelation for me because what he was sharing with me was that because I had the need to have a payment plan, I was automatically assuming that everybody else needed one too. And so this is what happened. Immediately after he brought that to my attention, the next 3 people that I had a call with paid in full. And so that showed me the power of separating your money story or your financial situation from that of your clients and not projecting that onto them or letting that be a mirror for how they show up with you. Just because I don't have the money right now or I need a payment plan doesn't necessarily mean my ideal clients do or my prospects do.
I love that story. That is, it's so true, not just with money, it's with anything.
Yes.
Whatever self-doubts you have, the questions you have, if you're, having problems with your teenage kid or whatever, what are you transposing onto the client? That's a great lesson. I love that. I know a little bit about your own journey. You found yourself in a dire situation where you came up with a plan to give yourself permission to succeed. Can you share a little bit about what happened there and how did you give yourself permission to succeed?
Yeah. So I know that life is not without setbacks and disappointments and failures. And so, there was a time in my life where struggle was like the main thing that was happening. And so in that moment, you know, you don't really know how to pull yourself out of it. And it seems like you can never keep your head above water. And so this is what happened for me. I found myself a person with multiple degrees and already having had a business that had earned figures and lost all of that stuff in the welfare office, which is not a place you want to be, right? Not a place you want to be at all. And so that moment actually became a defining moment for me. And here's how it defined who I am today. In that moment, there was so much shame in the losing of my business and to not be able to financially support myself and literally being in that space because the desire, I just literally need to be able to feed my kids. And you know, here I am thinking, you're smart, you're brilliant, you've got degrees, you've built a business before, you've got all this sales experience, and how come you can't get clients, right? And so here's what I know. Like I said, there was shame in that moment. And
a lot of negative self-talk.
A lot of negative self-talk, feeling like people were looking at me and judging me, and like I stuck out like a sore thumb sitting in that place.
And
like
you're naked in front of the world.
Basically.
Right? Yeah.
And so I found myself sitting there, and I remembered audibly hearing a voice, like in this space of just being down, audibly hearing a voice that said, "Get up, Shameca, fight. Like this isn't how your story is supposed to end." And as I look back on that moment, what I realized is in that moment, I had written myself 3 permission slips. And the permission slips that I gave are the basis of what I teach my clients, everything that I do in my business today. And so I would like to share that with you because I think they're super powerful. And so the first permission slip that I had to write for myself is permission to trust my value. Permission to trust my value. And here's why this is so important. It doesn't matter what we go through. Your value doesn't change. So I want to ask you a question. So Dan, I want you to think about this. If I have a $100 bill, how much is it worth?
It's not worth $100.
Right. And so if I ball it up and crumple it up, how much is it worth?
Still worth $100.
And if I stomp on it and drag it on the ground a little bit, how much is it worth?
Still worth $100.
Exactly. And so the lesson in that, trusting your value, is it doesn't matter what you go through. I think we are the hardest on ourselves. You can have setbacks, you can have failures and disappointments, but you are still you. The value that you bring to the table does not change.
Right. I use that same story a lot myself, and I always say your past does not define you. At every second of every day, you get to define who you're going to be and how you're going to show up in the world. And I know also, and I would assume that even takes with finding your value. On your website, you have the scars of your past has people second guessing themselves. And that's where the $100 comes in so much, is that the scars are your past, but they don't have to define where somebody is today. And it definitely doesn't define your value.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest lesson in that about the scars of your past, I used to think that those things were like kryptonite to me. If anybody found out that you had a breakdown, especially financially or whatever, how are they going to trust you? The fraud factor was huge. And what I realized and recognized what I have come to understand through this journey is that my setbacks, failures, disappointments, the scars of my past are not my kryptonite. They're actually my superpower.
All right. Exactly. And they can only be the kryptonite through your thoughts if you allow them to be. And you're choosing to not let them control who you are now. And so that's why they're your power. All the lessons you learn from them and the determination. I know how determined you are. Your determination not to let them interfere with your future.
Yeah.
So what did the second permission slip say?
So the second permission slip is permission to own your expert status or own your authority. And one of the stories that I like to tell to really anchor in this truth or this belief or this permission slip is, okay, well, let me ask you this question. If I ask you, who is the greatest boxer of all time, what would you say?
Muhammad Ali.
And here's the deal. Undoubtedly, no matter how often I ask that question, really no matter the age range, the nationality, it doesn't matter. The majority of people, everybody always answers Muhammad Ali without hesitation. And so here's the follow-up question to that I always ask. Who said he was the greatest?
And I know the answer. Most people are going to say that the people called him the greatest, but I know that he decided that he was going to be the greatest.
Yeah, and most people do answer that. They're like, he said he was the greatest. It was him. He was the one who proclaimed he was the greatest. Yeah.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, he said, I was the greatest before I ever knew, or I said I was the greatest before I ever knew I was. And so what I recognize is, when we're trying to pull ourselves up or when we're trying to grow to the next level, it doesn't matter what that is. If you're trying to grow from a multi-six-figure business to $1 million business, from $1 million business to $1 billion business, from just starting to hitting your first six figures, it doesn't matter where you fall on that spectrum. Oftentimes, we are waiting on an invitation instead of just taking a seat at the table. We're waiting on an invitation to play with the big kids on the big kids playground, to an invitation to sit and feast at the table where all success and opportunity lies. And I realized that if I wanted to grow my business, if I wanted all the things that were the desires of my heart, if I wanted my purpose to be real and to really have the types of clients that I wanted, I needed to go get it. I needed to claim my own expert status and say, you know what? I am the only me that there will ever be. It doesn't matter if anybody else teaches what I teach. It doesn't matter if they are perceived to have a larger. Because
nobody else teaches it the way you teach it.
Exactly. Nobody can teach it the way that I teach it. And the people who are that I am meant to serve, there's a connection. There's like a divine assignment and appointment that's on the books, right? And they're just waiting on me to stand up and say, hey, I'm here and I can support you.
And, there's people, I notice that so many people don't really understand that the people you're meant to serve are sitting out there lost until you stand up and say, hey, I'm here to serve you. Because if they can, there may be other people that they can identify with, but if you're meant to serve them, they can't be served until you decide to play big yourself.
Yeah, I think a good way to really anchor that in is to think about with kids. And I don't know how many people have children, or just with yourself. How many times did your mom or dad tell you something over and over and over again? And then like some teacher, or you read it in a book somewhere and it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Right. And your parents are like, I've been telling you that for years. Because that voice is the one, like when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
And so, there are people who you're assigned to who your voice is the one that they are waiting to hear. It doesn't matter how many other people are yelling this thing over and over and over again, or the solution over and over and over again. They can't hear it and will not hear it until they hear it from you.
Right. Exactly. It's a certain way, a certain place, a certain time, and boom, you get it. And that's where you can really help people. I tell people too all the time, I'm like, so much people are trying to identify themselves and find their unique value whenever their unique value is being them. And I always like to compare Michael Jackson and Elvis Presley, two great singers. And, there's a few people that would say they liked both of them, but most people, because they're two different genres, either geared towards one or the other. And where would we be as a society with either of these great artists?
Yeah, without them, exactly.
Yeah. And so therefore for, people that out there, if you're not sharing your gift, what's the world going to lose without you sharing your gift? So what's the third permission slip?
So the third permission slip is to stop hiding and sell more. And I know that sounds like, oh, okay, I'm not really hiding. I'm trying to build my business. And that's what I thought too. But what I recognized when I looked back is even though on the outside I was saying, okay, I want clients, I need clients. On the inside, there was some underlying stuff going on subconsciously where I thought, like I said, the fraud factor. I thought, okay, I really don't want people to hire me. What if I can get them a result? What if they get too close and they figure out that I lost everything? And so I literally was hiding in plain sight.
Wow. You actually was like thinking that you was worried about, what did you just say? Hiding? You was hiding that you sort of did not want them to hire you because then you would have to step up, I guess. Yeah, I've never heard anybody say that before. That's really interesting.
Because that was the realization. on the outside, it's like, I'm doing everything I need to do. How come I can't get clients? And really, I didn't want people to pay me. I didn't feel worthy to be paid. And that was just under the surface. It wasn't something I was thinking out loud. It was something that was happening in my subconscious because of everything that I had been through.
Yeah, all those darn beliefs that we tell ourselves, you know, that really keep us from playing big, which is what it was. But I can see where a lot of people would fall into that, is because you don't feel worthy. So therefore, you know, you're telling yourself, I'm not worthy of clients, even though you're doing everything to get the clients.
Or you're telling yourself, I'm not ready, I'm not known enough, whatever it is, all of it is fear. And some of that has to do with our beliefs around money and our beliefs around sales. And a lot of it has to do with what I call hidden fears that we don't even recognize are at play. They're like secretly sabotaging every little step that we make because they masquerade as very valid reasons for not taking big, bold action in your business.
Right. I know we both have a mentor that he always says, and I'm sure other people say it too, is you cannot grow your business any faster than you grow yourself. And that's where it is. It's overcoming your fears and moving forward. So now, would you like to share a strategy that our listeners can take in 15 minutes or less that they can implement to grow their own businesses?
Yeah, so let's just go with a strategy around some of those hidden fears that are there, because what I find a lot of times when people are afraid to sell or they're afraid to charge more for their services, there's the little sabotaging thoughts in their mind of, who are you to charge that much? What if people don't get results? Who do you think you are? All of those little things. And so, or nobody's going to pay that, right? And so one of the things that I like to do is I like to collect evidence. So we talked about trusting your value. We've talked about owning your expert status. And so I literally run around collecting as much evidence as possible, whether it's client case studies, testimonials, any evidence that proves to me you are an authority, you do bring value to the table, and I keep it in a file and I use it and I share it often. So there's 2 steps to this. It's every day, wake up and look for evidence of what it is you truly desire, who you truly desire to be. If you desire to be successful, what's the evidence around me that I'm successful? If you desire to have clients who love you, what's the evidence that my clients love me and they get results? If you desire to be a highly paid authority, what's the evidence that I am a highly paid authority? And just collect that. And then the second step to it is to share it. Not just hold it in your little book and look at it for yourself, because looking at it for yourself on a regular basis will edify you. But speaking it out to the world and having other people go, yes, that's what I believe about you, it kind of activates that Muhammad Ali factor where he said he was the greatest and then everybody else picked up on it.
Right. So you would just share it in a Facebook Live video and a blog post, or just with some stranger down the road?
Whoever you have to, I tell my clients, brag all the time and don't worry about it. We worry so much about whether or not we look prideful or haughty or whatever the case may be. And because of that, people don't ever know what kind of results we can get for our clients. And then it reinforces that, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. But you'll notice that the more you start to put it out there, the more people will start to praise you for it because they're seeing it as well. And it's reflecting back to you exactly what you've been putting out there.
Right. I love that. I really love that. That's a great strategy. So everybody start collecting your evidence and sharing it. It's great. Also, Shameca, I know that you have a great gift for our listeners. Would you like to share about it?
I would. So I want to share with you guys something that I've put together that I think is pretty amazing. It is a class that I did. So it's a really powerful guide and a mini course, and it's all about the 7 hidden fears that are secretly sabotaging your confidence and limiting your income potential. So we just talked a little bit about how there's hidden fears, the fear that we have that really masquerade as really valid reasons. And a lot of people aren't aware they're at play when they're trying to grow their business and really take the big, bold action that's going to get them to the past beyond 6 figures or to wherever their next level in their business is, or raising their rates or whatever. And so I've put together a mini course for you that will show you exactly what these 7 hidden fears are. They're the most common ones, and exactly how to turn them around. And what I do is I walk you through my simple, powerful process that will help you win over your fears, the hidden ones and the not so hidden ones, every single time.
That's great. And I know regardless, anytime you say anything, usually fear is at the root of it. I've even had people say, hey, I'm not afraid to be seen online. I just don't know how to. But whenever you dig deep, there's always like a fear of getting out there and saying something wrong. So sometimes you have to dig for your fears. You definitely want to go to bizsuccessin15.com and download Shameca's free gift and start overcoming your own fears, because even if you don't think you have them, you do. You have lots of fears that's sabotaging your success, whatever level you're at. So thank you for that gift. It's a great gift. And again, I do want to remind everybody that, before I do that, do you have any parting words for our listeners, Shameca?
I think the most powerful thing that I can remind people right now is action cures fear. So many times I see people stuck and stagnant, and maybe possibly even struggling. And it's because they're stuck in indecision or procrastination. And again, that's fear masquerading as I'm trying to make it perfect or a really great idea or whatever the case may be. But remind yourself that take any action and that will cure the fear. Once you're in it, the fear just dissipates.
Yeah, I know. I love that. It goes along with what I say about confidence. People are like, oh, I'm not confident enough. The only way you can build confidence is by action, which is going to overcome your fears. And confidence is not a place that anybody ever achieves. It's a state of being. Mm-hmm. It's a choice. And whenever you choose to be confident, you're going to conquer those fears.
Yes.
Through action. Love it. Just keep adding to it here. And so thank you very much for being our guest today, Shameca. It's been great. We could talk for hours about this. I do want to remind our listeners that all the links mentioned on today's show can be found on bizsuccessin15.com. And you'll be able to re-listen or download today's show if you want to listen to it over and over again for Shameca's great words of wisdom. Be sure to download her free gift. And with that, I want to say big hugs to you all. And tune in to Biz Success in 15 next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Biz Success in 15. For all links mentioned in today's show and to watch or listen to previous episodes, visit bizsuccessin15.com. Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for another amazing guest.